Well, Tom, dear chap, I must admit that I found it rather lackluster.
It's not that I don't appreciate a good laugh.
But there were moments when I simply couldn't find myself chuckling at all. The film seemed more concerned with pushing boundaries than actually crafting a coherent narrative. For me, the best bits were the sketches themselves, like The Meaning of Life and The Crimson Permanent Assurance. But when they tried to string these vignettes together into some grandiose meditation on existence, I fear they fell short.
It's like trying to make a tapestry out of colorful socks, sure.
You might get something that resembles art, but it's far from masterpiece material in my humble opinion. But enough of my grumbling, Thomas, dear boy. How about you? Did the glorious absurdity and sheer audacity of Python's most ambitious film endear itself to your cold, mechanical heart?
Well, Timothy, dear chap, I must say that while I understand your concerns about the film's coherence and narrative structure, I, for one, found it to be an absolute riot. Yes, some skits did seem a bit disjointed when taken out of context, but that's part of the charm, isn't it? It's like a comedy buffet. You can pick and choose your favorites, and if one joke doesn't land, just move on to the next. And there were plenty of laugh-out-loud moments for me. From the hilarious ode to joy opening sequence to the poignant gift shop sketch. As for the movie's underlying theme, I'm not sure it really needs to be sophisticated. Sometimes we just need a good belly laugh to help us cope with the absurdities of life. And Monty Python's The Meaning of Life delivers that in spades. Sure, it might not be considered high art by some purists, but who cares? It's a damn fine example of satire and parody at its best, poking fun at our obsession with meaningless rituals and the absurdities we humans have created around the most fundamental aspects of existence. Now, Timothy, dear fellow, I do recall hearing some interesting behind-the-scenes tidbits about the production. Ah, yes, apparently, the famous birthday party sketch was actually inspired by a real-life incident involving Terry Jones and his own birthday celebration, gone horribly wrong. Is there any truth to this tale?
Well, Thomas, dear chap, I must say that while I've heard that anecdote about Terry and his birthday gone awry, I can neither confirm nor deny its veracity. However, I can share with you one rather interesting tidbit about the production itself. It seems that during filming, the cast and crew were quite fond of pranks and practical jokes, which is par for the course when working with a Python gang, of course. But one particular prank stands out to me involving a rather intimate area of the male anatomy. It seems that during filming of the infamous The Meaning of Life sequence, where the choir boys sing about the different stages of life, including, and then we all dying. Well, anyway, at the end of one particularly long and exhausting day of shooting, the crew decided to play a rather, let's say, cheeky prank on Mr. Terry Gilliam. So they took a large rubber penis, you know, the ones you can inflate with air. Anyway, so they took this rather well-endowed member, if you'll excuse the pun, and carefully positioned it underneath Mr. Gilliam's costume specifically. Him, in the area of interest. And then they went home for the night knowing full well that Mr. Gilliam would discover his new appendage early the next morning. And sure enough, according to eyewitnesses, when Mr. Gilliam woke up, he let out a rather colorful string of profanities before realizing the prank. I must say, it's moments like these that remind us all how much fun the Python gang had during filming. Despite their often absurd and borderline blasphemous antics. But hey, what's life without a little penis in the vacuum cleaner humor?
Indeed. Timothy, dear chap, the music in Monty Python's The Meaning of Life is quite unique, shall we say? It's a hodgepodge of styles and genres that somehow manage to coexist harmoniously. I particularly enjoyed the over-the-top operatic tunes that accompanied the birthday sequence, as well as the hauntingly beautiful rendition of Galaxy Song by Eric Idle himself. Speaking of musical talent, there was also a rather talented young lad named Simon Taylor who played the role of, Mowgli in The Crimson Permanent Assurance, and he actually went on to have quite a successful career as a singer-songwriter under the stage name of the Drones. But moving on, let's not forget about the talented composer of this eclectic soundtrack, John Du Prez. He certainly had his work cut out for him trying to find a common thread between Wagnerian opera and 1950s rock and roll. But I think he managed it quite well.
Well spoken, Tom, dear boy. The music in Monty Python's The Meaning of Life is indeed an interesting mix of style. While I can appreciate the clever use of operatic and classical tunes to create comedic effect, especially in the birthday sequence, there were moments where it felt a bit too self-indulgent for my taste. The Galaxy song, for example, was admittedly well performed by Eric Idle, but I couldn't help thinking, isn't this just another case of Python trying to be more clever than funny? And as for Simon Taylor, aka Mowgli, he certainly did have a lovely voice, but his performance felt a bit out of place within the context of the film. But moving on from the music, let us now turn our attention to the talented man behind the scenes, John Du Prez himself. A true master of genres, if there ever was one, his ability to seamlessly transition between operatic grandeur and rockabilly rhythm is nothing short of impressive. But my question for you, Thomas Dearchap, is this: what do you make of the choice to include a song like I'm So Proud in the film? It's a bit, well, let's say not typically Python-esque, wouldn't you agree?
Well, Timothy, dear chap, I must admit that I'm So Proud was a bit of a curveball for me as well. I mean, it's not exactly the sort of song you expect to hear in a Monty Python film. But then again, what can we expect from these masters of absurdity? Perhaps they included it simply to subvert our expectations and provoke a bit of thought about the meaning of pride itself. After all, isn't that one of the recurring themes throughout the film? And who knows? Maybe the song just reminded John Du Prez of his childhood or something like that. But, moving on. Let us now discuss the acting performances in Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. What do you think of the cast's portrayals of their characters?
Well, Thomas Dearchap, I must say that the cast of Monty Python's The Meaning of Life did an admirable job of bringing their characters to life. Terry Jones, as usual, shines brightest in his various roles, particularly as Mr. Mexistok, the alien anthropologist. His deadpan delivery and outrageous facial expressions never fail to elicit a chuckle or two. As for John Cleese, he effortlessly slips back into the role of the stoically British authority figure, this time as the headmaster of the prestigious upper-middle-class English boarding school. His stiff upper lip and impeccable diction add a layer of absurdity to already ridiculous situations. Now, let's not forget about the late, great Graham Chapman as the ageless, omnipotent narrator. His booming baritone voice adds an air of gravitas to even the most absurd scenes. And then there's the brilliant Michael Palin, who, in addition to his usual array of zany characters, shines particularly bright as the hapless medical student, Mr. Stinky Cheeseman, babyface Palin, allowed his physical comedy and deadpan delivery are second to none. And let's not forget about the talented young lad who played Mowgli himself, Simon Taylor, whose angelic voice gave life to the iconic Galaxy song. But in conclusion, the real star of Monty Python's The Meaning of Life is without a doubt the ensemble cast, who seamlessly blend their comedic talents to create an unforgettable cinematic masterpiece, or, well, at least an amusingly absurd romp through the absurdities of existence, depending on your cultural perspective. So, Thomas, dear boy, what do you think? Did I miss any notable performances or moments from this highly acclaimed film?
Well, Timothy, dear chap, I must say that your analysis of Monty Python's The Meaning of Life is quite astute. It's clear you've given the film much thought and consideration over the years. As for the cultural significance of this cinematic masterpiece, I believe it serves as a brilliant commentary on the absurdities of modern society. By poking fun at our obsession with meaningless rituals and the ridiculous aspects, we humans have created around the most fundamental aspects of existence. Monty Python's The Meaning of Life forces us to take a step back and examine our own beliefs and behaviors. It makes us question why we do the things we do and whether or not they actually hold any meaning in the grand scheme of things. And through it all, It manages to maintain its trademark British humor, ensuring that even the most serious of harm topics are met with chuckles and guffaws. But moving on from the cultural significance, let's talk about some of the more obscure facts surrounding this film. For example, did you know that during filming, Michael Palin actually suffered a real-life injury while performing one of his many physical comedy routines? Apparently, he fell off a ladder and broke his arm. But being the consummate professional that he is, he simply continued shooting with his left arm in a sling. Now, Timothy, dear boy, what do you think about the cultural impact of Monty Python's The Meaning of Life? Do you have any personal anecdotes or experiences to share regarding this legendary film?
Well said, Tom, dear chap. And I think it's important to mention the impact Monty Python's The Meaning of Life has had on generations of filmmakers and comedians alike. Its absurd yet gripping approach to tackling existential questions still resonates strongly today, inspiring countless parodies and homages in TV shows like South Park and films like 12 Angry Men and a Baby. And who could forget the iconic birthday song sequence that has become an internet meme in its own right? It's proof that even after all these years, the Python gang still manages to make us chuckle with their zany antics and clever satire. So, dear viewer, do yourself a favor and go watch Monty Python's The Meaning of Life.
Again.
And while you're at it, don't forget to comment, subscribe, and maybe even press that little like button below. Until next time, farewell